Hello, hello. It's yesterday at 12 o'clock. Welcome here. Today, I am actually refilming this audio because I made this whole video almost. I got to the editing stage and I realized I sounded really tired and just sort of done because when I went to film the audio for this, the voiceover for this video, I guess I was really tired, but I kept sighing into the microphone and everything, and it was just a lot, and I was like, I just gotta redo this. So this video might be coming out a little bit later than usual. I want to have a video out every week, roughly at least, but this might be a little after that. Long story short, today I finished this cute little drawing of one of my characters. Their name is Scott. But while I was drawing, I noticed something, and I can't get it out of my head. So today, we're going to be talking about inspirations and comparison. So, big topic, to the Speedpaint. Alright, inspiration. This topic is sort of complicated, for me at least, I guess. Inspiration isn't that hard of a topic to grapple and make a video about, but I feel like if you're talking about inspiration as a whole and not how to find inspiration, it's hard to avoid fading in between talking about inspiration and artist comparison, which artists comparing themselves to other artists as a whole is a thing that I'm not really qualified to make a listen to me because I have 2 cents that I think are valuable to this conversation type of video, which I think that's how a lot of voiceover topic videos are interpreted. Maybe that's just me, I don't know, but TLDR, I'm not an expert at psychology or art. I just wanted to generally talk about this stuff, so let me stop rambling and let's actually get to the explanation. So, this drawing. First of all, before we get into the topic, I want to say it's funny how drawings can change as you make them, because this was originally going to be a very different character and have a very different mood, and I'm still going to make a drawing like that soon, but I've got to think of a different, composition, obviously. Exciting stuff, but either way, as I was drawing, I had the vision of a fluid picture of a sort of waist-up portrait of Scott being happy and doing their airbending magic and sort of playing with sparkles, right, with their hands up. It's a pretty simple idea and it seemed pretty easy to execute, but as I drew, I was realizing, more and more, especially in the sketching process, that it was looking more and more similar to this drawing I had seen online a little bit ago. And it was of this other person's character with a very similar sort of vibe, where it was a sunshine character looking up diagonally with their hands up, playing with sparkles and the wind flowing. And I was like, oh, crap. And I got really in my head about it for a little while I was drawing. And obviously I made alterations, and of course it's my own character, so that helped a lot. It's very clearly its own thing, but it's fascinating to me how even subconsciously you can take inspiration from very, very specific things, right? Inspiration, according to dictionary.com, everyone's favorite website, is the process of being mentally stimulated to do something, specifically something creative, or to breathe in. But inspiration in art is really important. In my opinion, and I think this is, a broadly accepted thing, inspiration is arguably the most important part of any creative endeavor or art piece of any kind, especially your original ones. Inspiration is extremely important to tell your audience more about your work, and by doing so, maybe even make people look at your art in a different light, or at least that one piece. Inspiration number 2 makes your art better. You can take inspiration from well-received and well-produced pieces and medias that you enjoy and make yours better. And obviously, as everyone knows, inspiration is what sparks your ideas. I have a hard time putting into words exactly all the stuff that I think about inspiration as a concept and as a word. It's just a really powerful thing. But if the world and media and history has taught me anything, there's two sides to all powerful things, right? In the case of inspiration, if you take too much, you may end up in a situation where you are effectively copying something that doesn't belong to you. Or if you're inspired by something specific enough, you may find yourself in an unhealthy comparison to that thing that you like versus your own works. And I'm gonna get into artist comparison a little bit here. There's a lot more in-depth videos about specifically just artist comparison, not inspiration, from people who have a lot more experience than me. Specifically, I don't know how much experience, but this was a good video. Aaron the Artist's video. It was really good at exploring a bunch of different points, but in general, comparison is such a double-edged sword, and it's just another really interesting phenomenon. With art specifically, it's impossible to improve without it. It's impossible to even exist as an artist without comparison. I mean, the world is full of art, especially graphic design type things. And if you're in an artsy space online, you will immediately find crowds of people who you'd classify as being, like, quote, better than you at art or at something specific, like character design or anatomy or backgrounds. And it's easy to forget that they're just farther along on their journey than you are. And you'll get there eventually. Art's a skill, but even if you keep that in mind, it can be hard to look at someone more talented, someone who's more skilled, because obviously, nobody's born with perfect portraiture abilities, but someone who's at a goal that you want to be at, it's hard to look at that and not focus on how you're just not there. And that feeling, it's just so sucky. It's just annoying and depressing and hopeless, and it can feel like if you catch it at a bad moment, it can feel like you just have a mountain in your way. And I've dealt with this, obviously, and I know people who have struggled with this even more than I have, and it gets really tiring to hear the advice that you'll get better with time, no matter how true, it rings. It just feels... It's just hard. It feels like there's no way to fix it. Comparing yourself to another person, of course, is not only existent in the art world, but in the art world, it's not only yourself doing the comparison. Posting art online is opening the doors for people to tell you how similar or worse or better your art is than their own or a published media or another artist. And it can be something that's really hard to deal with because, like I described with this piece specifically, the similarities and the inspiration could have come subconsciously. People will look at that and assume immediately you did this on purpose. And sometimes people do, but I think it's unhealthy. It's healthy to compare things. At the very least, it's normal to compare things. But giving it as criticism isn't necessarily the best thing. And it can be, frankly, a little bit mean because an artist could just be at newer or at a different point in their journey, and people will flood their comments with things like art lore or I remember when my art was this bad, and it's like, what? Stop. There's no place for that, I really wonder what other people think of how, specifically when it comes to taking inspiration from something else, what's the line for what's your own? You can't copy other people's work, plain and simple, but where is that line? Every idea and concept has already existed in some order or some lens, and like I said, you can't escape art. You're seeing it everywhere. If you want to make TV shows and Like, let's use mine for example. In my TV show, theoretical TV show, a lot of the main characters have these crystals that they wear as jewelry that sort of represent them, and they also have these tattoo birthmark things where when they're using their magic a lot, that birthmark will glow. And obviously, because the gems are usually central pieces of their design, those will also glow. And that is, of course, very similar to Steven Universe. And I didn't go in going, how can I make this more similar to Steven Universe? Or, I really like the idea of the gems in Steven Universe. I'm going to boot them into my own story in my own way. I just wrote that and then retroactively realized the similarities. And it's really just interesting. Taking inspiration it's fascinating to me. It can be such a wonderful thing. Being someone who engages their creativity even a little bit, or even if you don't and you just harness that natural human passion into something else, being like truly inspired can be one of the most amazing feelings. You just have to figure out the way to focus on inspiration and not comparison. I think inspiration can actually be one of the best ways to eliminate comparison. And that sounds dumb because I just said inspiration can lead to negative comparison, which, by the way, I want to clarify, I'm talking comparison with a negative connotation. For some people, comparison doesn't have that connotation. I have to remember that, not everyone is me, but I mean like looking at somebody's creative endeavors. We're going to talk art specifically. Looking at somebody's art and saying, damn, this is so much better than my art. And then immediately saying, my art is bad, right? And that is simply unhealthy. Your art isn't bad. There is always something, this is a hill I will die on, there's always something positive and something negative and something constructively negative that you can say about something. No matter where you are on your art journey, there is always one of those three things. Even if the positive thing is really simple and specific to you, like you used a different color for the hair than you usually do when you're drawing little stick figures, That's still positive because you're learning diversity. You're learning to diversify your portfolio, your experience, but your comfort zone. And that's part of it. But if you look at a piece of art and say, damn, that's so much better than my art, instead of jumping to, God, my art is bad, this is my advice. Try and say, okay, why? Right? What is it about this other person's piece that I find so appealing? And look at it and find an analytical eye to see it through. See if it's the person's style or if it's this piece specifically. Maybe it's the way it was shaded. Maybe it's the figure of the drawing itself, the focus, the focal point. But either way, zero in on something. If there's a piece that you like all of it, find some place to start, or find another piece by the same person or whatever, but just find something that you can look at, and then look at it like study it, that specific thing that you like, and try to emulate it in ways you can use. And I can't emphasize enough, take it in bits and pieces, and that way you're improving your style, at least in your eye. You're making it look more like something that you want, or more like what you're envisioning. You're not copying, obviously, because you're focusing on one part that they are more skilled at than you. You're not going, I really like this person's art style, I'm just going to start, asking an AI program to draw my characters using their art as references. Like, ew, no. And you're not feeling bad or lazy because you're being proactive. Obviously, I'm not the first person to say this. Like I said, most ideas and concepts have been pumped into the world in some way or another at some time or another. But either way, I think it would be a lovely thing to do, and I did it once. Lately, I haven't really been studying because it takes a while, and that's a thing I think a lot of people struggle with. Drawing with intention and studying something can be hard because the best way to study, or at least the most common way to study that I have experienced and seen, is like flipping to a new page. Let's say you need to learn to draw hands, or you like the way that these two artists draw hands, which, by the way, it's even better if you can find a host of inspiration points. Let's say you're trying to do hands. The most common way I see people study is they will flip to a new page, just a blank one, look up a bunch of hands from the places that they like, from the artists that they like, or from just actual hands, depending on what their goal is, and just copying it down, looking at it, and then taking their pencil and making just a whole page of just a bunch of randomly placed hands. And that is really useful and often very effective, but can be demotivating because it can be hard to see. You know, if you want to learn hands because you want to be able to draw your characters casting spells more intricately, it can be hard to just draw hands and stay motivated to keep working on it because improvement takes a while. And I don't have a solution to that, honestly. That's why I've only done this strategy 1 or 2 times, but the big thing that I think can help with that is thinking about how if you're doing it with intention, you're actively improving, it's not taking as long as it could. I think it is very common that people will just improve whether they are trying to or not. Like, I never sat down and tried to learn how to draw head shapes, and that's why the way I draw head shapes isn't perfect and I have to redo them like several times. But if you look back on all my old pieces, it's a lot better than what those were, and that's just because I was subconsciously or semi-consciously taking in inspiration, pieces of reference. You've just got to have fun with it. I did this strategy for myself twice. I did it with eyes and I did it with hair, which is actually a funny thing because I learned to draw shade hair to a point where at the time it was really good compared to the other stuff that I had done. But then I started writing a story where a bunch of the main characters have buzz cuts and ponytails, where I just couldn't really use the things I had learned, which that's just kind of funny to me. The way I draw eyes is a good example of it. I used to draw eyes like this. It was just like always almond shapes, specifically boring almonds almost constantly, and I would look at other artists and be like, God, their faces are so much more expressive than mine. What can I change about their face or their eyes to make it more how I want it to be, to make it more like theirs? And I looked over a bunch of different people's work and I was like, okay. And I practiced and used the thing, and eventually I could make an eye that looks like the ones you're seeing or you will see. And I took that and amplified it, and now I've all but completely implemented it in, and I'm ready to work on improving eyes again relatively soon, because I want the ability to make them more cartoony. But if it worked for me, it can work for y'all. And I feel like I'm giving a sales pitch, but honestly, just for real, stop saying your art sucks and try to do something specific at the very least. If you can't decide what to start with or what to focus on, just use a random number generator. This is one of the biggest pieces of advice I can give for life. If you are terrible at making decisions, just randomly number generate. And if you're upset with the answer you got, then you obviously had a preference to which one you want to start with, even if you didn't know it before you flipped the coin. Then just do that one. Do whichever one you want to do. Because, yeah, I think that's all I've got to say. I think this video actually ended up running a little long, which I don't know. I mean, whatever. We'll see how this goes and how I end up liking it. I hope this helped, and I hope I wasn't too confusing, and I hope I had a better energy. And I hope you have an amazing day. Remember to drink water. Bye.